Good morning. Happy Friday. So yesterday was our leadership training. So a lot of speakers on leadership. And, it's amazing every time I hear all of these different speakers, and it's just incredible what people are out there doing. There's so many people that are doing extraordinary things in their lives and in the world. And I love hearing them talk. So one of the speakers talked about, when it comes to leadership, and by the way, if you don't think that you're a leader, you are, because there's one person that you're always leading, and that's yourself. So never forget that leadership is always something to study and pay attention to. It's heavily studied, but hard to understand. We spent some time talking about it for a while on our morning talks, but remember that even if you're not leading a team, even if you're not an elected official or leading a community in some fashion, you always are, because you're participating in some community, whether it's your work community or your family or your church or whatever. But either way, you always lead yourself. So it's always a good idea to pay attention to any leadership stuff, because it'll help you in terms of leading yourself on any given day. So one of the speakers talked about leaders have the choice as to how they show up to lead. And it's the same stuff that we talk about state management. It's the same thing. When you show up to lead, you decide how you show up. Are you going to show up in a positive state or in a negative state? Are you going to show up looking for ways to make it work or looking for ways to make it not work? Are you going to show up looking towards the future, or are you going to show up looking towards the past? And the next speaker, who was a coach, UCLA girls softball coach, talked about your inner voices, and that we have a good inner voice and a negative inner voice. And she said, ask yourself this question: would you date the inner voice in your head? Because the inner voice in your head is what's running your life, because it's talking and asking questions, and that's deciding how you think. And we all have the voice that says you can't do it, or this isn't going to work out, or this is a bad idea. I mean, we all have that. But the question is you got to not listen to it. What do you do with that voice? And you need to tell that voice to go away. And her way of doing that with her players is to name it and to tell it to shut the hell up. She's a coach, so to name it and tell it to shut up. And this is a great distinction in terms of our different personalities. So, maybe this is a whole topic I should do tomorrow, but, we have you have a personality at work that functions well at work. You have a personality that functions well as a parent. You have a personality that functions well as a spouse, and they're different. And one typically doesn't work well with the other. I mean, your personality that works at work a lot of times isn't going to work very well at home. And then you also have personalities that don't serve you. So a great way to handle that is to name them. To name the personality at work and call that personality when the time comes. When you're at work, that's the state that you need to be in. Sometimes, with work, you need to be in a more dominant state in order to function. But you don't want to be that when you come home and are a parent. You don't want to be the same person. So name that person that operates better as a parent, and then call when they come. And her point was this inner voice in your head that's telling you can't do it. Name that voice. Name it something that, you makes you laugh or smile or changes your relationship to that particular series of comments that are being made. Name it something that you think is ridiculous, and then tell it to shut up, and then listen to the other voice in your head that tells you that you can do it. I thought that was a great distinction that I'd never heard of. I've never had it put quite that way. And, the point being is these tools are kind of all the same. It's just a matter of how you approach it and what's the filter that you're going to utilize. What is it that works for you in order to do this stuff? The other person that spoke was a Master Sergeant Navy SEAL. And, so he's a warrior, but he's a warrior that operates from a place of Zen. He operates from a great deal of yoga and a great deal of thought before he goes ahead and does what he does. He doesn't operate in reaction. And interesting to see how, the military's disciplines in terms of training their people on how to do things, for me, is one of the greatest areas to learn how to train yourself, how little things become big things. And they train their people to be warriors. They train their people to be, everything that a soldier is supposed to be. But at the same time, they don't train them to just be crazy maniacs that react without thought. They train them to be the opposite. They train them to breathe and to think and to then respond, so that they can respond with the most knowledge and skill and direction. And they also focus on one thing at a time. And their leadership is about team. Their leadership is about everybody holding everybody else to a super high standard, so they operate at the highest optimal level possible. And so the leadership comes always from a place of service. And that's always what, we should remember when it comes to leadership. True leaders come from a place of service. And if you want to lead people, you got to be there wanting to serve them at the highest level. And you don't have to tell them that. They're going to know it and they're going to feel it. That's how they're going to decide. So I love the distinction about the inner voice. I thought that was great. I thought that was brilliant. I hope that it makes some sense for you. We start our Wealth Mastery this morning early, so we'll be off and running. So I'm sure I'll have all kinds of great information for you there. But remember that the one of the number one Navy SEALs in the world operates with thought and intent. And he's a warrior, but he pauses and he thinks and he breathes and he meditates tremendously in order to focus on what it is that he wants to accomplish. And even when he's in the middle of a firefight, which he says is really a difficult time to stop and think and breathe, he still stops and thinks and breathes in order to decide what he's supposed to do. And he says, that's why I'm still alive as opposed to not being still alive. Food for thought. Have a great Friday, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We're all in this together. Let's take care of each other.